As the title of the video says, I'm here to tell you why your rankings or your criteria for the college football playoff rankings are trash. And the main reason why I say that is because I see too many people with uncritical opinions about how these rankings should be done. And so I already know that I'm probably going to make a follow-up video to this explaining a little bit more of what I'm talking about and getting into more details. But I believe this first video should really help you. And the reason why I'm making this is to help you to think better about how these rankings are done. And then maybe you can give them a little bit more grace in the end and you can readjust how you think about it. So first of all, you're doing something wrong. You assume that your criteria for a top 4 team is an objective one. And I'm here to tell you plainly that it is not. Your criteria, I'm talking to you looking at the camera right now, for the college football playoff rankings for the top 4 teams is not objective. You then project that subjective criteria that you have on the committee, and then you get angry when they don't follow your criteria. And so I see some people are saying undefeated records mean that you should be ranked higher just because you have an undefeated record. First of all, you can't just project that on somebody. You can't just say, because I believe undefeated records are a really great thing to do, that means everybody must value it the same way that I do. That is false. That does not have to happen. That's a false equivalency. Just because you're undefeated, which is a very good thing, by the way, I'm not saying that it's bad, doesn't mean that you're a better team than somebody else. Now, if you're going to try to argue that we should reward people for being undefeated, okay, then say that. But it's a difference between saying we should reward teams for being undefeated and saying that they're better than another team because that other team has a loss, which isn't always the case. We see that all the time. So you really have to think well about that. Also, I see people love to state that X team, so any team, blah, blah, blah teams, schedule is weak because the ranked teams that they played are overrated. But simultaneously, they'll say somehow their team's ranked opponents are appropriate. And so a lot of times, especially in that particular conversation, people have a moving target in that conversation. They'll say, well, see, this team is better than that team because, insert random subjective criteria to determine why their team's opponents are tougher than the team that their deriding's opponents are. And there's really no set criteria for determining who is better than who. You really have to stop doing that. That's just not fun to look at. And maybe some people just like to argue about this type of stuff, and maybe that's fun to them, but it gets annoying to look at, especially when people are seemingly having real arguments about it. One thing that people don't consider is that teams can be better than their record. The prime case here, you might get mad at some people because, Southeastern Conference gets a lot of hate. South Carolina, they might actually finish with a 4-8 record this year. That is a bad record. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not defending the fact that they're 4-8. They probably will finish 4-8 when they play Clemson unless they get an upset. So you may be asking me, well, then how can they be quote unquote good? Okay, watch how they played against Alabama and Georgia. They actually played really well against Georgia and beat them. They played fairly well against Alabama for a little bit before ultimately losing. But you see that just because the team's record is bad doesn't always equate to them being talentless and unable to play well on any given Saturday. That literally can happen at any time, and South Carolina is one of those teams. They have talent on that team that can play, and they have at times. The issue is that they are nowhere near consistent. So a lot of people don't even consider consistency when they're thinking about rankings. That's how they can beat a team like Georgia and then come back and lose to Tennessee. I'm just using this team as an example. It doesn't have to be an SEC teams. It happens in every conference. You don't need to argue for any type of conference superiority to make this argument that I'm making. I don't have to be an SEC homer, as some people love to call people who may give any team in the SEC some type of credit to make that type of argument. Also, another point I was making too, because when I was talking about undefeated teams earlier, what's more difficult to do as an undefeated team is to not only win every game, but to win every game in a manner that dictates how you should win. So if you're playing against teams that people consider below you, or that you're probably more superior to in that sense, you should win that game in some type of dominating fashion. So it's harder to go undefeated and do that every game because that requires consistency. So I'm going to go on to another point, but keep that in mind. So people don't also consider that division foes and conference foes sometimes know you better than outer conference foes. I think the Pac-12 is saying, yes, we've been saying that for years. Your division foes and your conference foes are going to know you really, really well. That is why SEC West teams can lose at any time. Mississippi State, LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, all those guys are very dangerous to each other. People can just lose at any time, and it's rough. The Big Ten West and East are both treacherous. You really can get in trouble. And I even mentioned the SEC East. The Pac-12 can just be all over the place, like I said. Coaches get used to each other, and they learn how to match up well against teams that they've played against multiple times. That's just a natural part of how football works. The only conference where this doesn't seem to happen a lot is the ACC. So I had to throw somebody under the bus. I'm sorry, ACC fans, but Clemson's been running through you like crazy, and it's intense. Clemson's an example of what I'm talking about, kind of seeing in recent years where a team can go undefeated and they dominate their opponents like they're supposed to. Clemson's a good example of that last year. This year they had a little struggle with UNC, but they've been doing really well down the stretch. So fans, it was just crazy, will allow for their team to, they'll allow for this for their team. They'll say, well, our conference, our division folks, they know us really well. It's really hard. You just don't know it because you're not part of our conference. But they won't allow it for other teams. I've seen Big Ten fans say, well, our teams like Iowa and Minnesota, blah, blah, teams that are perennial, that might be bad some seasons, but they beat their team. They say, well, they're a good conference for them. But if an SEC team tries to say that, they say, no, they're just overrated. And that's just really hypocritical. You can't just go back and forth like that. You have to be consistent in the type of criteria you're giving to different teams. Many also do not consider that the manner in which you win, I touched on this already, is just as, if not more important than winning itself. So if you are a clearly superior team / elite team, then you should consistently beat your opponents in a manner that reflects that, which is why Ohio State is highly ranked right now. They probably should be ranked number 1. I'm sorry, LSU fans, but Ohio State should probably be ranked number 1. Due to this, rankings should not have as much weight as casual fans give it. And what I'm basically trying to say then is, look, these rankings, man, they don't always accurately reflect the best overall team at the time. They could have a combination of factors that you're not even aware of that don't lead to the best criteria for ranking a team. And so, with all that said, it is clear that determining the quote unquote 4 best teams is no simple matter, but the casual fan on the internet is going to try to tell you it clearly should be this team when they haven't thought about it that well. Yet people are out here getting angry as if it is just that simple to claim these are the 4 best teams in the nation. I just want people to think better about this topic. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I can talk about this forever. I shallowly touched on a lot of these points. I can go much deeper into this, but this is just the beginning. I want to know what y'all going to think. I want to know if people are ready to fight me in the comment section. Leave all your comments. I want to have good discussions on this. I want to know your thoughts. See you next time.